And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I told you it was going to be a short break. So, in this fourth segment, we're going to talk about Rudy Gobert winning the Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Victor got robbed. I am not going to sugarcoat it. I think Victor Wembanyama got robbed of this award. And that's not saying that I don't think that That's not saying that I don't understand why Rudy Gobert won it, because I totally do. And he won it based off of the team's overall defensive ratings and just how good the team has been defensively, mainly because of him. Like I've said several times before, it's no coincidence that the Utah Jazz were ranked number one defensive team when he was on there, and now he's on the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves are also ranked the number one defensive team. So he's bringing that defensive value to the team, no doubt about it. But this isn't MVP. This is not the most valuable defender award. This is Defensive Player of the Year. And when you're looking at MVP, you have to look at every other award differently, because MVP takes into account team success and winning. And because of that, that sort of hinders a lot of great players that even though they might be the best player in the NBA, they might not win the MVP because their team has a worse record than another guy who is the best player on the best team. Because that's essentially, to break it down, MVP goes to the best player on the best team, because that's how you generate value, by generating wins. And it makes total sense for that award to be to take team accomplishments into consideration. So, but Defensive Player of the Year, it's not most valuable defender of the year. It's just Defensive Player of the Year, meaning that who was the player that stood out the most on defense this year. It could be interpreted that way. That's not how the voting works, obviously, given how Rudy Gobert ended up winning this. But to sort of argue Victor's case, I mean, Victor averaged 3.7 blocks after the All-Star break. And directly after All-Star break, in the games directly after, he averaged 4, well over 4. And on top of that, he has already earned the respect of veteran NBA players when they're at the rim. Already you can see the amount of... I've seen Victor stop 1-on-3 fast breaks. I've seen Victor stop people from taking wide-open layups just because of the fear that he might be able to get that block. And when I see that, it's how is he not the Defensive Player of the Year? Teams are literally getting scared of a 1-on-3 situation just because Victor is in the paint. And the big play that really changed my mind was when Chris Braun dunked on Rudy Gobert. So if you guys don't remember, earlier in the regular season, the Spurs, they played, well, not that early, but after All-Star break in the regular season, the Spurs, they played the Denver Nuggets in a game, and Braun was going up for a while. Braun was about to take a wide-open layup. It looked like he had a wide-open layup. There was nobody in front of him. The only person behind him was Victor Wembanyama, and even then, there was still a few steps until Victor would be able to catch up to him. Instead of going up for that layup, he decides to run around the basket. He does not attempt the layup despite Victor being behind him. Few steps behind him, I should point out to you. And he passed to MPJ. Luckily enough, MPJ ended up making the shot in the end, so it was a good decision by him not to go up with that layup. But it was the entire crowd and everybody was very surprised that he did not even attempt a layup there. But when Rudy Gobert, he saw Rudy Gobert dead center in the paint, directly under the basket, dead center in the paint on a break. He says, I'm going to just dunk on him. And then dunks on him. And he wasn't scared of Rudy Gobert whatsoever. He just went up. And, like, when I saw that, I was like, maybe it's not so far-fetched calling Victor Wembanyama the Defensive Player of the Year. Because, like, think about it. The Defensive Player of the Year was in front of him. He wasn't scared to go up. And he dunked on him. A rookie, Victor Wembanyama, behind him, looks like he was about to chase him down. And even just the slightest hint that he was going to go for that chase down, he goes the other way and he gets scared. Like, that is like, if you want to talk about value, that is ridiculous value. And he's not the only player that passed up open layups like this, by the way. He is far from the only player that passed up these open layups. I mean, there have been, again, like I said, there have been several teams to have 1-on-3 fast breaks with Victor in the paint, and they just don't go up. They just don't decide to take any shots in the paint. They would rather settle for the corner three, if anything. And still, Victor somehow finds a way to close out sometimes. But if you're looking for value, I feel like that right there is very valuable. I mean, like, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's a whole YouTube compilation of NBA players refusing to take wide open layups because Victor is around the area. And it's really unfair because Victor can only control the defense so much, because since most of the time he is in the paint, he can't be out there defending the perimeter, and it's not really his job to defend the perimeter. I mean, he certainly can, but it's not really his job to do that. And he can't control how good or how bad his teammates play on defense. So it's really, like, not fair to just base the that's sort of why Defensive Player of the Year is sort of unfair to, like, be for it to be a team, or for it to consider team accomplishments or, like, team accolades, things of that nature. I don't think it's the right award to do that for. MVP is completely different, but Defensive Player of the Year, I don't think that's the right award to where you should be doing that kind of thing. That's just me, however, because it's like, again, he has no control over how well the other players out on the perimeter play. He has absolutely no control over that whatsoever. And neither does Rudy as well. And, like, I would be making that same argument for Rudy, and, like, how he doesn't, like, he can't really control what the perimeter players are doing on the Timberwolves, and it might just be that the Timberwolves just have a lot better perimeter defenders, which allowed them to get that defensive rating to number 1. But the one thing that's preventing me from saying that is that this isn't the first team that Gobert has been on where they were ranked number 1 defensively. I mean, there's just too much proof in the pudding for Rudy Gobert's case. And the fact that, like, you know, the team success, it really goes a long way for a lot of these awards. But my opinion, I think Victor Wembanyama should have won it. I think Rudy Gobert, like, robbed him of this award. Granted, I understand why he won the award. I just don't think he should have won it over Victor Wembanyama. That's just my personal opinion on that, and that's really, like, but let me know what you guys think about Rudy Gobert winning it in the excuse me. Let me know what you guys think about Rudy Gobert winning it in the comments. With this Defensive Player of the Year, he now becomes one of 3 players to win Defensive Player of the Year 4 times. And one of the other players to do that was Mutombo, and the other player was Ben Wallace. And obviously, like, with him being in that conversation, having 4 DPOYs, which is the most in NBA history, winning 4 DPOYs, he right now is in that same argument with Dikembe and Ben Wallace as one of the best big men defenders in the NBA, like in NBA history, in fact. And call me crazy. I don't see it. I don't know what it is. I don't see it. I cannot put Rudy Gobert on that same level as Dikembe and Ben Wallace. I just cannot. Like, I don't know if I'm crazy for thinking that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, but I cannot put Rudy Gobert at the same level as Dikembe and Ben Wallace for, like, defensively. I just can't. Dikembe and Ben Wallace, they played in an era that was dominated by centers. And, like, there were so many elite centers that they had to defend just to be able to, like, just to be able to even be in consideration for this award. And not only that, but there were also much more centers that were also in the conversation of winning these awards. And I mean, like, Ben Wallace, he guarded Shaq. I mean, like, he was able to guard Shaq. He blocked Shaq. Like, and on top of that, there's so many, like, other great big men that they matched up against, and, like, their sole purpose was to play defense on that. And I cannot put Rudy Gobert on that same level, especially when Jokic is dropping, like, when Jokic has a history of dropping 40-plus points on Rudy Gobert's head. I don't know what it is. I cannot put him on that same level as those two. But let me know if I'm crazy for thinking that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is Rudy Gobert on the same level as Ben Wallace, as Dikembe Mutombo, now that he has 4 Defensive Player of the Years, same as they do? Or is that not the case? Again, I have a very difficult time seeing it, but who knows? I want to know what you guys think. But with that, that's the end of this segment, and that is the end of the show for today. So thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as per usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is basically it for the show. Be sure to tune into those podcasts that I was talking about earlier as well. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great.